Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bill Has Opinions, the Gen X problem with the drinking show. I am Laura Lavoie, and I am here with Bill Perkins, who has opinions.
Hi there.
Hello. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
As always, because you're always on the show.
Yeah. Well,
Considering the show is named after you, so right. I'd hope you're here.
Right. That'd be a weird. This should be like a stand-in 1 week, You just get like I don't know. Would you get another Bill, or would you just like have Bill Has Opinions with no Bills?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do know multiple Bills, and all of them have opinions. So
there you go. So that you could manage it that way.
That's true. That's true. So how are you? Tell me what's up.
Yeah, I'm okay. Doing all right. Got back from that business trip. Lesson learned on that whole thing. I think, did I mention last week? I had an idea in my head of what business trips were and how glamorous they were. Okay, so I did cover that, and yeah, it wasn't glamorous. It was all business. Trip was all business, and yeah. So anyway, glad to come and have my afternoons off again. Actually, and by afternoon I mean starting at 5, but trying to take back some of my time.
Right. Are you reclaiming your time?
A little bit, little bit.
That's good.
But I was busy as heck today. I mean, we're going to be busy probably for another 3 weeks, I would guess, on this conversion thing. Anyway, how are you? How's your week?
So far so good. Nothing crazy. I have developed another cough again. I keep trying to test positive for COVID, but I don't. So I'm just coughing for no reason, apparently.
Hang in there one day. One day you'll get it.
Well, yeah, exactly. Exactly. I would like the reassurance that one day I will stop coughing, but instead it's like one day you'll have COVID. Don't worry.
One day you'll test positive. And
That's true.
Yeah, that stands to reason.
That's true. That's true.
So you know this, but the viewers at home don't know this. But I got back, and then yesterday afternoon I got a text from one of the team leaders from Atlanta, and they're like, "Oh, hey, one of the people who was there tested positive for COVID." So
I mean, of course they did. They flew people in from all over the country and said, work in a very small space together. Of course somebody did.
Somebody's going to have COVID, yeah.
What were you expecting?
I mean, I totally expected that. And the funny thing about it, the lady who tested positive for COVID was the one who was like the most careful the whole time. Like she had a mask on the entire time.
Oh, the poor thing.
I feel bad for that because she was obviously trying, and just, but I don't know. I did get an email from her today, which means she was working. So I guess she's not that bad off.
Well, it's not. Yeah. The Omicron, people are still working instead of like the early, original recipe version.
Yeah, we're not laying in the hospital coughing to death. So there's that at least. So
Right. At least there's
that. Aside from the one really bad day. Anyhow, if you haven't gotten it yet, that's what you got to look forward to.
Hooray. But also, this show is not about that, but coming up this weekend is the big game.
Oh, yeah.
And
Superb Owl.
The Superb Owl. So I bought this t-shirt to wear for the game because my team is never in the Superb Owl.
Sure.
So I thought this was adorable and fun. But then our former quarterback who left the team this year, this was his first season, not with the Detroit Lions, is going to the Super Bowl.
Right. Now, he left the team on his own accord or because they said, get the hell out of here?
No, he was traded. It was a big trade. I mean, he'd been with the team for like 12 years, and we still hadn't gone to any play. Well, we went – actually, he took us to one playoff game. But
so he was glad to leave, probably.
Yeah. No, it was time.
He was like, I think I could probably do things with another unit.
As it turns out, he was right.
Right. So
now I can't wear this shirt on Sunday.
I don't give a shit that I don't even know who the fuck's playing. So tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, so Matthew Stafford, who was on the Detroit Lions until this year, is with the LA Rams,
Okay.
and they are playing the Cincinnati Bengals.
All right. All right.
And I think what most people are most excited about is that the Patriots or Tom Brady are not in this Super Bowl.
That is exciting to have finally a Super Bowl with no Tom Brady, isn't it?
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Or no Tebow either. Neither one of them. Was Tebow
Right.
ever in the Super Bowl?
No.
Oh, he just makes a big deal. He's just a showboat about.
Oh yeah, he flamed out. I don't think he was in the suit. Actually, I could be wrong, but he flamed out.
Okay, so he was a big deal in college, I remember, and then he had like one good season in the NFL, and it was like that was all right.
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't last very long. Whereas Stafford, who I think it was either the same year or the year like 1 year difference. Stafford was drafted out of University of Georgia, and has played with the Lions ever since. And apparently, as we've just learned, is not the problem. So because he's going to the Super Bowl.
Right.
So I bought this shirt, but now I can't wear it because I have to wear my Stafford jersey.
Because you do want one of the teams to win.
Yeah, this is the closest the Lions will ever get to the Super Bowl.
When you get an ex-player in the Super Bowl, you're like, hey, that's good enough.
And not just any ex-player, but the quarterback. That definitely hasn't happened. So.
Right. Yeah.
Big deal. Big deal.
Yeah. So are they making changes over at the Lions or what?
Yeah, so we don't need to go into too many details, but we got a new coach and some other new staff and some things going on this year that we did not win a lot of games, but it was exciting to watch. So hopefully that translates as they keep working on it.
But you won a game, and that was different than
we won a couple. We won a couple of games by the end of it. So
yeah, so there you go.
A handful of games.
That's better than not winning any. I mean, although I know sometimes you guys are like, at some point you're almost like, it's like when you're playing hearts, and you're like, okay, I'm running them.
Exactly.
I just want to get a whole rate of no games.
Exactly. Well, and the Lions were the first team in NFL history to go 0-16, but then they can't even fail right because a couple of years later, the Cleveland Browns did the same thing. So we couldn't even manage to be the only team in history.
Right. Yeah. So
we suck that much.
So you're competing with Cleveland for the bottom of the bottom.
We were. The Cleveland's actually gotten pretty good. So
okay. So now you're back to like Okay.
Yeah, I think this year it was us and the Jaguars that were.
Has the Jaguars ever done anything?
Yeah, they got a little okay for a brief period of time, but not great.
But they've only ever been mediocre. Like they've never been like the Panthers where they get like almost there and.
Yes.
They don't at least win their like division or anything, right?
Yeah. No. Until the Good Place came out, I always forgot that the Jaguars were a team. Like I would just completely forget about them, and then they would play us, or I would see them somewhere, and I'm like, "Oh, the Jaguars, they're a team."
That's a thing.
Hey, look at that! But then the Good Place changed that, so now the Jaguars are cemented in my brain.
They're on your radar.
Anyway, we've gone way off track for the first 10 minutes. Way off track. So let's get down to what you're drinking, and don't get into too many details because some of those will go later. But just tell me what you're drinking.
Well, I was told I was drinking a beer by Boojum, but I think it was mislabeled, which I got to talk about that to somebody in a few. But it's called the Citrus Rescue, and it's actually from New Belgium, and it's a citrus IPA. And while I'm not a big IPA drinker, I do like citrusy drinks, and this is a really good one. Actually, I think it's the best citrus drink I've ever had, even though I have always given New Belgium props for citrus IPAs. This one's better than any of the Citradelic products I've had.
Nice.
It's really tasty. It's got a pretty heavy orangey lead, I would say. It's not subtle like Oberon or something like that. Where you get like just a hint of orange. This one's like no, it's like. There's some orange there. Probably the closest thing to it I've had. Somebody had some sort of blood orange thing back during the summer. I can't remember who it was now. It had blood orange in the title. And that was pretty close. But yeah, this is really good. Nice. I would recommend people drink it. Yeah. So that's what I'm having right now. On deck, I've got a leftover accumulation from wait, who makes that?
That is also New Belgium.
Also New Belgium. Okay, I've got a leftover New Belgium accumulation, and I've got a leftover Highland Black Watch, which I don't know if I want to get to or not.
Yeah, if you go from like citrusy straight into a Black Watch, whew, you're going to be hallucinating.
Well, I think also my alcohol content will be too high because the Black Watch is like 8%.
Yeah, which is why you'll be hallucinating.
These others are 6. I had a lager before I came over here too. So what are you drinking?
Well, I'm sticking with the theme. I actually had a lager before when I ate my dinner. I had a Pilsner. But now I am drinking, so going with the theme, I've got the Bell's Official Hazy IPA, which is kind of the IPA version of Oberon. So it has that citrusy flavor, and it's a wheat pale ale. So it's pretty good. And then on deck, I have the Low Pitch Hazy IPA, which is also bright and citrusy. So, because it says, how I know that? Because it
says it right there.
It says it's bright and citrusy.
Yeah.
So that's what I got going.
You log into Untappd, and it asks like what the flavor profile is. You click bright, citrusy.
And that's it. Yeah, that's as far as I know, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, I got to stop coughing.
Really?
Which means I'm going to let you talk for a little while.
Okay.
So the show that we're actually doing, which I noticed like right before I launched the show, I had a typo in the title. So I did fix that. Now it's fixed.
What did you call it?
I had it. I didn't notice all day, but apparently we were doing a show on Cultus, which is a totally separate thing. It has nothing to do with cults, but we are talking about cults.
Okay. Yeah.
So why don't you start us off with a bit of a monologue?
Sure. Yeah. Blue Oyster. My Life with the Thrill Kill. Those are 3 cults that are also bands, and that's not what the show is about. But I thought it was interesting that they were called that. Let's see. My earliest involvement with cults would be I remember as a kid, my grandparents making a big deal out of the Procter and Gamble logo. Do you remember this? This was
I do remember this. Yeah,
the Satanic Panic. There was a scare. So Procter and Gamble's logo has like a moon and a bunch of stars, and the moon is like this like spooky old dude. It just looks like a fucking like something you'd see hanging up some old hippie's house, honest to God. Like it's just like some sort of like Green Man sort of motif, except it's a moon instead.
Right.
But anywho, there was this rumor going around in the late 80s that was the owners of Procter and Gamble were like, I don't know, they were either Satanists or they were Moonies or some shit, it was all over the place. It actually did cost Procter and Gamble a lot of business, and I think they sued somebody over publishing a story about it and won. But damage is done. There's an empty Procter and Gamble factory building in Baltimore, Maryland to this day because I think the company suffered enough to have to like fuck off, kind of.
Right.
But yeah, I remember that being a whole thing. And then later on, let's see what else. I did remember hearing about the Moonies as a kid too. I didn't know what the fuck that was about, but I'd hear people say something about it every now and again. And then I guess I was probably in college when the ATF like did the whole raid on the Branch Davidians, and that became a big deal.
Yes. That situation went off the rails, not just because they were a cult. Like, yeah. There are a lot of things went wrong in that
some
situation.
Serious fuck ups on the part of law enforcement involved in that whole thing. And since then, of course, when something like that happens, you go back later on, you read about it, and you find out more shit about it. And I always thought it was interesting that I read something about how I guess actually, and it's published now on the internet, like you can find it if you look. But David Koresh was sort of a failed rock musician too, right? Like he wrote a bunch of songs and shit. And it's funny how often this theme will come up over and over again, because Manson was also sort of a failed musician, um, and I've actually maintained myself as a theory that the rock musician has sort of replaced the shamanic position in society.
Sure.
Which I actually so here's my theory, okay, about shamans in general is, back in the day you had your caveman tribe or whatever, right? And obviously the person who was the biggest and strongest would be like, and he'd become the leader of the tribe, right? And you couldn't defeat him if you were the small nerdier guy. You didn't have that, but what you did have was you could sort some things out. And I feel like the nerdier, maybe artsier type came up with a plan, and the plan was, I speak to the gods. And and Ugg over here being kind of a dipshit. I mean, even though he's stronger than you, he's like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And
can't argue with that.
The whole rest of the tribe's like, interesting. And then suddenly you have some clout in the tribe too, even though you're not the strongest or whatever. And so that's kind of like the beginning of the shaman tradition. And of course that goes on for years and years until we kind of like, become civilized or whatever the fuck you want to say. And then, yeah, exactly, in quotes. And
a lot of indigenous cultures still have shamans.
Sure. But in civilized culture, we don't have shamans. But when we did get rock stars who I feel like have the same sort of shit going on, right? I mean, like your Jim Morrison or whatever, gets up there and dances around and the ladies go, woo, and he tells you some bullshit about the lizards and whatever the fuck, and a bunch of Indians wrecking in a ditch or some shit, and it doesn't mean anything, but it sounds deep, right? It sounds real deep. So anyway, so my theory is that these people, like, I get it when you see people who are failed rock musicians who become cult leaders. I'm like, I see it, because the whole point really at the end of the day is probably for this guy to get laid. That's really what he was going for. All he wanted to do was get laid, and when it didn't work out being a rock star, he said, well, shit, I could come up with some sort of like, God hocus pocus nonsense, and I could probably get laid that way too. And so he shifts gears, and bada bing bada boom, there he is.
right, exactly. Yeah, I've just always had a bizarre fascination with cults, and not in a like I'm gonna run off and join one kind of way, but in like a sociological or anthropological way. Like, I find them so freaking fascinating, and I will watch any documentary series or listen to any podcast or any of that because I'm just fascinated by it. Yeah. And the reason I brought this topic to you is because I just recently listened to a podcast about a cult leader. She claims she's not, but that was one of the most fascinating things I've listened to in a while. And I was like, holy shit, this is awesome stuff. And we'll get into her later.
Personally, I'm interested because it's a female cult leader, which is a rarity, right? You don't get a lot of that. So yeah.
It's interesting stuff. So we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, but and we're going to go through a few different kinds of cults, because obviously there's infinite types of cults. You can make a case for all major religion, really, if you wanted to. But we're not going to go quite there. But like, I think some of the most common cults as they're defined, I think the biggest definition is they should have a charismatic leader. So like a David Koresh or like a Jonestown situation, right? Where you follow somebody and you will literally give up all your money, all your belongings, all your freedom to do that. And then doomsday cults, which is just, the world's going to end, so we might as well do it now. Like, like the Heaven's Gates. Mm-hmm. So, and then there are also a couple, like you mentioned earlier, there were cargo cults, which is a whole different genre of cults.
Right. And then the other thing besides the charismatic leader, though, you also, they cut you off from your friends and family. Like, find reasons to alienate you.
Yes, yes,
And
yes,
cult becomes your family, right?
yes.
That's the idea. Like you got to get so entrenched
So
in it.
all of your validation and all of your everything, and often in most cases, your self-worth, your actual monetary worth, everything is tied up in that cult.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no going out. Whereas a cargo cult is kind of a different thing, and we'll talk about that a little bit later if we get there.
Yeah.
And then I think an interesting type of cult are like the family cults, like the fundamental LDS, where it's like one guy and all of his sister wives and then all of their children.
Or like
And
Westboro.
like that, or like that guy with the sister wives reality TV show.
Yeah.
Like you're not really, like, technically he's not a charismatic leader. He's just their dumb dad, but he has like 56 children because he's got 4 wives.
Yeah.
And they all, like, they're their own church. So they don't go outside into the community for any reason.
Hey, that one guy from the Tiger King show, he's kind of like that too, right?
Oh yeah, he's got some cult tendencies.
He's got like 7 wives. They're all increasingly younger and
yeah, all the young employees that he would then marry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating shit, people.
Yeah.
Fascinating shit. So we are going to get into it more, but I suppose we should hear a word from our sponsors.
Sure.
We're the word of our sponsors because they don't pay us. But today's episode is brought to us on location at the Purple Onion in Saluda, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah, I want to say a thing or two about this. Purple Onion, my wife runs this restaurant along with her partner Chambly, who's in the kitchen. And I did want to mention that they are opening a second restaurant in late March, early April. That's going to be a thing. They got a taco joint that's going to be opening up.
That is exciting as hell.
Yeah, it'll be tacos and margaritas. Be a little lower price point, so Purple Onion's kind of a nice sit down place with kind of classy, and it's got music on Thursday nights right now. Hoping to have music on Thursdays and Saturdays in the near future as soon as shit gets less weird.
Right, yeah. We actually have been wanting to come down. There were several artists that were playing lately, and then we were just starting to feel better from the last crud we had, and then we got a new crud. We're like, God damn it.
Yeah, well, actually, I'll say every other musician cancels at the last minute lately too. So that's a reality we've been dealing with as well. But yeah, there are some good things coming up, and I'll send you a list of what I think you should come for.
Okay.
I saw one the other day that I said, "Oh, Laura would probably like this," Yeah. So we'll talk about that after the show. But yeah, other people, if you're in the area, if you're passing through, and you're looking for a good meal, and you want some nice place to come to the Purple Onion. If it's Valentine's Day, don't come to the Purple Onion. Another place. My wife said it's amateur night. It's the people who go out one night a year, and that's the fucking night they pick.
Right.
We actually quit going out for Valentine's Day years ago. Like, if we go out, we go to somewhere like the Waffle House. Because
right.
Fuck it. Like, it's so aggravating because, first off, you can't get a reservation. And then if you do, I don't know, just the whole thing. It's fucking nuts. Dan Savage has this thing that I think is funny. He's got this idea. This is fuck first. Because he's like, you don't want to come home with a full belly and then act like you're going to get romantic.
Right. So we usually don't talk about the show schedule until the end of the show. We are actually off next Monday because it is Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And the only reason Valentine's Day is important in my house is because it's also our anniversary. So, but because it's a Monday night this year, we're not going out anywhere because Monday is a stupid day to go out. So I'm actually making shrimp tacos because our first date ever was at a restaurant, I'm not kidding you, called Carlos Murphy's. That was a Mexican-Irish pub. It doesn't exist anymore.
That's fucking hilarious, though. There used to be there was a onion article one time that said something about this place called Patio Touchdowns Good Time Internet Bar and Grill.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that sounds like to me, you know?
It was exactly what you're imagining. All right. So we got some cults to talk about here.
Yeah, let's talk about them.
Well, let's start out with some of the low-hanging fruit, right? So you got Jonestown.
Yeah. Yeah. Those people
Dude
really
was like,
they really enjoy.
Like,
go ahead, sorry.
No, sorry, it's all me. He was like, I want to start a thing and you're all gonna follow me. And apparently, yeah, he had other like aspirations that didn't work out either. And then was like, I'm gonna buy an island and we're all gonna move to the island. And then when like actual shit was getting real, so all of his followers believed everything they were doing was, ordained by God. But what actually happened is they were about to get raided and he's like, you better die. So he literally mass murdered his entire community.
Yeah, that's probably the craziest one in the history of all of them, right? I would say, like, and I've never done that. I actually haven't done that deep dive on it. Like, I'm vaguely aware of it, but I don't really get it. Like, I don't know. Like, I probably should go back and read something more about it. That one, it is pretty fascinating. This is the only thing I really know about it, is that everybody always says like drinking the Kool-Aid,
right?
And technically, he was cheap, and they drank Flavor Aid.
That's yes, but also it's an interesting metaphor that we've created because, yeah, drinking the Kool-Aid, like that doesn't mean what we think it means, like just because we believe that vaccinations are valid does not mean we're in a suicide cult. Like that's not what that means.
Yeah. No, people say that whenever you do anything that it's basically like sheeple. It's become and it's actually a reason for me to become dismissive anymore. Like I hear it and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to stop listening to you because you have nothing really to say. You're just going to call me a sheeple and say I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, which also, again, if you say drinking the Kool-Aid and I know it was Flavor Aid, then I know that you don't know anything about anything.
Right. Yeah. Explain to me what happened at Jonestown, shall you? Because, yeah, exactly. All right. So then that brings us
Gatorade, like after the game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
How about dumping the Gatorade all over the coach?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what if you poison that? That would be terrifying.
It'd have to be a poison that can be absorbed through the skin, though.
Yes, but very cool. Like in all the spy movies that this can't happen, but like the lipstick, right? Yes. That will kill a man. It doesn't. I don't think there's anything that would do that.
Oh no, Batman has wax lips that protect him from that shit, right?
Right. So
yeah, after Poison Ivy kissed him, he's haha.
Yeah, there's a lot of plot holes in spy movies. So then let's talk about, here's a classic, which of course people will argue is or is not a cult, but is Scientology.
I mean, who's going to argue it's not? The Scientologists?
The Scientologists.
I mean, like, that's the only people who are going to say no. I would say, yeah. I mean, it's got a goddamn alien in it. It's like, so, and that's a whole thing. Let this be the start, I suppose. This is the beginning of our little mini breakout on alien cults, right?
Yes.
But yeah, so Xenu several gazillion years ago did some shit. I don't know, like bad vibes permeated the universe or some shit. We call them Thetans, I suppose. It's so funny. I was walking down the street in New York City. Was it New York? Yeah, I think it was New York City. And I walked past the Scientology building there, and they gave me a little card, invited me to come in for a personality test, if you will.
Right. To see if you were brainwashable.
Yeah, I guess so. Is that what the idea is? Hey, if you're a stupid celebrity who didn't graduate high school, then
we're the church for you. Also, apparently it's a networking scam, right? Because almost everybody who's in Scientology is an actor.
Yeah, I guess that is true, and they're in a lot of the movies together, right? Like Kirstie Alley was in movies with John Travolta, and I don't know, I imagine it is a networking scheme. Although I've often thought that networking in its way was kind of a cult or a religion almost, right? It's the same kind of thing. So here's the deal, here's the good news: you can become a billionaire through Amway. Now,
exactly.
You need to go out and tell all your fucking friends about how they can become billionaires through Amway.
Exactly. So here's a quick, I know we're still talking about Scientology. We got more to talk about on that. But another cult down on the list was NXIVM, which was started by a guy who originated in Amway. And it became like this self-help MLM that turned into sex trafficking. Dude's in jail now. It wasn't good.
I see similarities because I was briefly, while I've never been involved in a cult, I was briefly involved in an MLM for 3 weeks before I was like, "Fuck this shit." My ex father-in-law was in an MLM, and he wasn't big into it. He believed in their product, but he wasn't trying to get all the, what do you call it, downstreams. He wasn't really trying to collect downstreams. He just liked their product. He was like, these are good products, whatever. And I got that, but then we got involved, and then we went to one meeting at the fucking Hyatt, and we listened to and I was like, okay, this sounds like bullshit. I was out the next week. I was like, this is crap.
Absolutely. So, fun fact about Scientology, right? Everybody knows it was founded by L. Ron Hubbard, who was a science fiction writer.
Mm-hmm.
And he had some ties prior to starting Scientology with Thelema and what's his name? Crowley and all of that. He had done some of that.
Mm.
And then the story goes, and I don't know exactly how accurate this entire story is, but the story goes that several science fiction writers, including L. Ron Hubbard and Heinlein, made a bet to create a religion, and they wanted to see what would happen if they did that. And there were a couple others. It's kind of like the bet that Mary Shelley and Percy Shelley, when who could write the scariest story,
right?
But in this case, it was creating
the scariest fucking reality.
Right. Right. And so both Heinlein and Hubbard they created religions. Heinlein had a religion called Church of All Worlds, and it's like proto-Wiccan. The Wiccans were really into Church of All Worlds. And there's still a Church of All Worlds. There's still people involved, but it's nowhere near. Because once you get Wiccans involved, there's no organization.
And there's they're kind of like anarchists. Right? It's like having an anarchy society.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
So, but you want to meet next Tuesday? Not really. I got things going on.
Good. But Scientology took on an entire, L. Ron Hubbard died and did not know that it was going to be what it was,
Yeah. Well, because here's the problem. It made money. And then once it makes money, then it becomes this whole fucking own animal, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly. Yeah. All right. So here's another kind of a theme, I guess, is weird sex cults. And like you said, a lot of the cults, that's their ultimate goal, right?
Yeah.
But the one in particular is the Children of God. So I don't know how familiar you are, but the Phoenix family, the River Phoenix, Joaquin Phoenix, and all that, they were involved in this.
Oh, okay.
And it was this crazy cult where they're part of their evangelism, for lack of a better word, was to go to other countries. Women would go to other countries and sleep with men to get them to be part of the church. And it was a weird sex cult. There were definitely all kinds of accusations of child sex abuse and all kinds of just horrible things.
Weren't the Hansons raised in some sort of crazy?
They may have been. I don't know that for sure. They also could be Mormon. Like they seem like they could be Mormon.
They do. They're very blonde and blue-eyed, so they look like they could be Mormons. You know, it's funny. I have a friend who, I guess she was in a sewing circle with Mormons, and because she's blonde and blue-eyed, they would talk about Mormon shit in front of her that they probably shouldn't have talked about. And she would get privy to like some shit that she'd be like, wow, interesting. And she's actually an atheist, but because I guess she looked enough like a Mormon,
they were just like, you must be one of us.
Yeah, they would just like run their mouths in front of her about private Mormon shit, you know?
Exactly. So, well, and of course you do get, I mean, there's the argument to be made about LDS, but definitely the FLDS anytime, like the sister wives. And
yeah, I'd go so far. Actually, you know, this is funny. This is LDS was sort of responsible for my one of the steps on my road to atheism was the South Park episode about LDS. Basically explained everything they believed. And I was watching that and I was going, man, what a bunch of horse shit. Like, who could fall for this? And then I started thinking about it, like really like big picture thinking about it. And I was like, well, it's not really any more ridiculous than the bullshit that Christians believe, you know? And so it made me think, oh, fuck, you know, like honest to God, like the only difference between a cult and a religion is years of history. Like, you know, how many years of tradition it has somehow makes you feel like, oh, it's validated. Like this is real because it's, you know, 1,000 years old, but you believe the same cockamamie horse shit those people believe. I mean, well, not maybe that same cockamamie horse shit, but horse shit that's as cockamamie.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So that was what made me kind of step back and go, wow, you know, like who am I to criticize them for thinking an angel left some tablets under a tree when I think a guy got swallowed by a whale? Like that's, you know, the same dumb shit, really, right?
That's fair. You know, it's funny though, even though I was raised Catholic, like I was always taught that these stories were allegories. Like I was never taught that they were real. And I didn't realize until I was long since not Christian that other people weren't taught that. Like other people believe it literally.
It's funny that the Catholics are able to take the words of the Bible and say, this is it's a story, but the bread turns into fucking flesh in your body.
Exactly.
Like that's the thing that like Protestants think is allegorical. Like
exactly
that doesn't happen. It's still
exactly
bread. It's still bread and grape juice, and I say grape juice because Protestants won't drink.
Definitely we're doing wine, yes. Well, which is why I see in the pagan community, right, a lot of former Catholics because it's all allegory, it's all mythology, and it's all ritual. Like that's it. So there's a shorter leap from Catholicism to paganism than there is from any other Christianity to paganism.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, well, definitely because they sort of absorbed. Also, you know, that was one of the ways that they spread their MLM, if you will.
Right, exactly. They were like, you got a saint you love, we love your saint too, or you got a God you love, we love them too. They're a saint.
Well, now it's you know, Saint Lugnasa or whatever the fuck. Like that, we're doing that now. That's the thing we're doing.
That's the thing. You like them, we like them. It's all good.
Feast exactly. That's now a Catholic feast day. We're gonna make it a thing. Like you're like, but it was a pagan festival. Yeah. It's not anymore. Now it's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Although, so quick point, the Branch Davidians obviously were also kind of more like an LDS or an FLDS. You know, sure. They were a specifically biblical Christian cult with weird charismatic leaders. So
yeah. And the idea being, I want to fuck lots of young girls.
Yes. That being, which I do not recommend. I think that's a terrible way to try to be famous. Yeah. All right. So
you're gonna run a cult. That's not the way to do it.
It's not the way to do it. So okay, let's get into some of the more fun cults, the alien cults.
Yeah.
Right. So I've got a short list here.
Sure.
I guess we can start with the Urantians.
The Urantians, who I discovered on public access TV when I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. And they run some pretty interesting programming, I got to tell you. So they have this whole thing. It's like the United Federation of Planets. They have this whole fucking parade of people holding banners. And they would be like, welcome, Space Brothers. So they believe that at some point, all these ships from different, like it'd be like the United Nations. I mean, it was exactly the United Federation of Planets. Like they at some point in the future, all these spaceships would come from other planets, and they would all stack up and create this huge skyscraper that like Capitol Records building in L.A.
Right.
And they would welcome us into their fold, and then that would be the dawning of the age of Aquarius or whatever.
Urantia, as it is,
I guess. Yeah,
as it turns out.
And so then what I think, like in the early 90s or something, maybe the dude who started it died, but his wife took over, and she was more interesting than him anyway. And her name was like Queen Muriel or something like that. Mm-hmm. She wore these horn-rimmed glasses, which I always thought was like that. Like if she didn't have horn-rimmed glasses, I wouldn't have really fell for it. But I was like, man, like she's got a look, you know. And she had this whole like sort of queen bee sort of thing going, you know. And yeah, it was like she was like a cross between, I don't know, like if you've ever seen there's an old B sci-fi movie with Zsa Zsa Gabor called what is it called? Something about the Queen of Venus or some shit like that. And then it's like she was a cross between that and like Mrs. Slocum from Are You Being Served?
Right, exactly.
She had purple hair too, right? Like I want to say she had purple hair and horn-rimmed glasses, and it just really sold the whole deal to me. But they would tell you this whole story about how like these cavemen, like I watched so many episodes of this shit. Public access TV really is like,
yeah, I miss a lot of public access.
If you want a good LARF, watch a couple hours of public access TV. That's what I got to say about that. They were so awesome though. I liked that one a lot, and I was really into it. They seemed very benign though. Like they weren't like, it was more like Buddhism or Judaism almost. Like they weren't really like hard selling you.
Yeah, and there was no like. There's no specific buy-in. I mean, you can buy their books, but there's no specific buy-in. And then, like, there's no outcome. Like, we're not all going to die, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, it seemed very benign as far as these kinds of things went, right? So that's kind of why I also think of them fondly, because there was never.
They were just goofballs.
Yeah, exactly. It was just funny. It was like, hey, that's interesting. No, the other one.
Well, before we get off of Urantians,
yeah, sure.
I have a strange and bizarre connection to the Urantians, but it is not one that I've pursued because I'm a little bit terrified. So when the actual founders of the Urantians passed, apparently the torch was also passed to some guy, and I cannot tell you. I have no idea why this person is now the leader of the Urantians. I have no clue. But his name is Byron Belitzos. And the reason that is important is because my beloved partner Matt's last name is also Belitzos. And it's not a common name, even among Greeks. Like, this is not a common name. So there's no way they are not in some form. I mean, it might not be like a close cousin, but they've got to be some level of related.
Right.
So part of me wants to like reach out and be like, "Hey, cousin Byron," but then the other part of me is like, "Nah, I don't want to know."
I mean, like again, it's one of the most benign of cults, right? Like, so, I mean, at most it's entertaining is the way I look at the Urantians. Whereas you've got then, so moving slightly more sinister, but not quite, the Raelians, right?
Yes, the Raelians are another one of my favorites. I mean, they're not quite as benign. But they're also not, they don't have a lot of influence, thankfully.
Sure, but they cloned they claim to have cloned a person, right?
Yeah, they claim that, all right. They sure do. So the Raelians, they're truly one of my favorites. So the leader, and I can't remember his real name, he's French. But he goes by the name Rael, R-A-E-L, Rael. And he dresses like a fucking Jedi. And he has multiple women, wife, people. and they're all like super freaking hot. I mean, this was also in the 80s and 90s, so I don't know what they look like now. But so he has all these women.
Less hot and more.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we all age, right?
All age.
So their big thing was that this group, and he had a whole alien thing too. Like aliens came out of the sky and presented him with all the known information of the universe.
Yeah.
And his entire cult was mostly made up of young, attractive women. And then somewhere along the line, and I'm not even exactly sure how this happened, but he claimed that he'd been given the formula to make clones. And he proved this by cloning himself. And there were several babies born within his group. And he said, see, this is proof I've cloned myself. But also, I don't believe he understands what clones are.
Right.
Because unless they were literal tiny copies of Rael, they're just babies.
Yeah.
And some of them are girls. Like, you can't clone yourself and make a girl.
Yeah. Like, did they ever do DNA testing on the clones?
I have no idea. At some point after that.
These have half your DNA and half someone else's DNA. These
amazingly.
These
That's
are called
nature's clones.
This is prodigy, not clones. Right? The closest thing to clones is a twin, right? Like that's the real. An identical twin is a clone, right?
Right. But this was like right at the days like when Dolly the sheep, like some of those things were just coming out.
Yeah, they had figured out how to clone some animals, although there were kinks in it because they wouldn't live very long or whatever the fuck, right?
Right. But so, my God, he was entertaining as shit. Like,
no, I remember reading it. This is the thing. Like, I would read a lot. You know, I would read these things, and I'd be like, "Wow, that's some cuckoo pants stuff." Like, okay, that's cool. And I remember reading about that one because this one was after the next one we're going to talk about, I believe.
Yes.
Which made a big deal because they were a combo of a doomsday and also an alien cult, right?
Yes. Of course, everybody should know this one, Heaven's Gate.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So I admit I didn't know much about them. I just recently, like within the last year, watched a documentary. So I didn't really know any of the things that led from inception to mass suicide. And so I watched the documentary, though, and I was like, holy fucking shit. Like, this is crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So I think you actually know a little bit. Like I watched the documentary, but I don't remember all the details. I think you have a few of the details a little more cemented. Or at least the leaders and such.
The leaders in the sense of the aliens. I knew that they spoke about these two aliens named T and Doe.
No, they were the actual leaders. T and Doe were the actual human leaders.
Okay, I thought those were aliens.
No.
Okay.
No, they were the actual people.
Then I the only thing I really knew about it was I knew Nichelle Nichols from Star Trek's brother was in the cult and was one of the people who died in the mass suicide thing.
Yes.
And we bantied around the idea yesterday for a brief moment of dressing up like Heaven's Gate members, except for neither of us own sweats nor Nikes. So
yeah, and I didn't want to shave my head. So yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, there was definitely some sort of there was something involved in that. So like
yeah, I think they had something to do with the internet or something, right?
Yeah, that was part of the impetus, right?
Right.
So, like, from what I understand, it started out kind of like Nexium or Amway, where it started out as like, do you want to know the secrets of the universe? Come to the Ramada. And like people, like you'd show up and, oh yes, absolutely. That is absolutely correct. They wrote software, as you corrected, to pay for the cult. That is absolutely true. Yes.
Huh.
So there was a couple of leaders, like they weren't leaders yet. They weren't cult leaders yet. There was just like, Sam and Diane. I don't even know what their names were. But it was literally like
people at Cheers were running this.
Just those came to the top of my head. But so like they started this whole thing. And then we know everybody knows your name in Heaven's Gate. So, but then somewhere along the way, like it like got out of hand. Like it just got, so the two leaders, they were platonic they were platonic partners. And
Okay.
in this case, I think that's true because of all the Heaven's Gate stuff.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure nobody was having sex.
Sorry, didn't they castrate you when you became a member?
Yes. Oh, well, yes. You had the option to be castrated.
The option. Okay. Yeah, I'll pass. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. No. But so it was T and Doe, and I can't remember which was which, but one of them died. And like that was then like died of cancer, like died a terrible, painful, long involved death.
I see.
But they talked about that she ascended. She ascended. And that's what they all needed to do. They all needed to ascend. And then they still had this whole, I guess I remember more from the documentary than I thought. They had this whole thing, and I mean, it was just a house full of people. Like it wasn't nationwide or anything. It was like 15.
It was like a foster house, right? Like with like a bunch of bunk beds in one room and shit.
Yeah. And they all planned that on this one day the aliens were coming to get them on the Haley-Bop comet, right?
Oh, yeah, the comet, yeah.
Yeah. So they knew the comet was coming. So like, oh, they're coming for us. They're coming for us. That's what T said or whatever, she said when she died, the comet will come. So for some reason, they all had to wear a sweatsuit and sneakers. And then apparently, like there was somebody that was administering the poison and then covering everybody. Like it was a whole thing. Like, it was very delicately done. Except for the final person, who of course was the only person that was found unshrouded.
Yeah.
And when they got to the house.
Could that person not have shrouded themselves and then took the poison? Yeah,
you see, like there are ways around that, right? Yeah, but
I would have sorted that out. Like I would have made it like so it looked very uniform. When they came, they'd be like, "Well, goddamn, you got to give it to them. They really pulled this off."
Well, maybe, damn it, the aliens did come for them on Haley-Bop. Damn it. They were right all along. But yes, they did totally fund their living expenses and everything with some sort of software. So,
I wonder what it was.
Like, I don't remember. I don't remember.
I mean, and then there was no support for that software after the fact, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's supported anymore. No, I don't think so.
You have to download something else. Yeah.
Yes, you have to move on.
This is done. We were using that for accounting in our office.
Yeah, can you imagine the people that were like, I was relying on this, and now they're all dead.
I really was hoping for that next update. God damn it.
I should have gone with Constant Contact. Dear God. All right. Okay, next on the list. So this is the one I was talking about. So this is what started the whole thing for me because I just listened to this podcast. So we're going to jump around because there's stuff after. This is very, very, very new. Like, this is going on right now. Nobody's dead yet. Oh. I don't know well, actually, that is incorrect. People are dead.
Somebody did die.
Somebody has died. Yeah. So there's this woman named Teal Swan.
Uh-huh.
And as you might guess, it's not her given name. Teal Swan.
Think?
What?
You don't think? Her parents were hippies.
So what I think is interesting about her, she is considered a guru, like by her followers.
Wait, what kind of guru are you? Is that a real poncho or a Sears poncho?
Exactly. But she is totally a cult leader for the YouTube digital era.
Okay.
Because what she does is she makes all these YouTube videos about how she is connected to the universe and she knows all of these life lessons, including how not to kill yourself or how to kill yourself, which we'll get into in a minute.
Solving Wordle in two moves.
Yes, exactly. But no, but she, but the reason she's so popular is because she understands SEO. Like she's totally a modern era guru because she optimizes her video content so people find it. And now she owns property in, I think, Costa Rica, and there are dozens of cult members who live there with her. And they have dedicated their lives to her and they sold all their earthly belongings. And she swears she didn't start a cult. because she tells her story is she was in a cult, which there's no evidence that she was. But she says, I can't start a cult. I can't because I was in a cult, so I know what cults are, so I can't start a cult. I'm like, well, that doesn't seem to be true.
People start businesses who are in businesses.
Correct.
Right?
It is fascinating shit.
You are able to learn from your mentor and then go off and do your own thing, are you not? Mm-hmm. Okay, weird.
So I recommend Googling her. Do not watch her actual. I mean, you can watch a video or two, whatever. But there's actually a podcast that was one of the most fascinating things I've ever listened to.
Yeah, no, I don't want to give her a goddamn dime in whatever.
Sure. But yeah, listen to the podcast because like the guy, like within, it's only a 6-episode podcast, but the journalist that's doing it interviewed her in like the first episode and she was completely transparent. She's just babbling off shit. Like, you're like, oh my God, lady, do you listen to yourself? Apparently not. But anyways, a couple of people who took her advice have killed themselves. But part of her advice is, you have to commit to living. And apparently they didn't. So.
Yeah, I'm not down with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to go the other way. Interesting. Okay. So, hey, you mentioned a sort of a connection to something, and I know you have a connection to another cult, and I wanted to bring that up, but I've also got a mild connection to a cult that I want to talk about.
Oh God, I didn't even realize what time it was. I love cults, so I'm like, let's talk about it.
We got to go. Right. Yeah, we got to get on it.
So let's talk about these two, and then we'll.
Okay.
So you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first real quick. Third cousins. My grandmother's cousin was in a cult. There was a cult in the Carolinas, and I guess it was a religious sect. I don't know how you define. Again, so charismatic leader, I would suppose, right? And
charismatic leader and cutting off from
family.
Yeah, so those are two of the main ones.
They were kind of like that, like in the sense, like how if you're a Jehovah's Witness, how they basically like you can't really talk to your family members who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses anymore. So same kind of thing. It was actually like a Pentecostal thing. It was a sect of Christianity. I read the other day that it was actually the main guy had been a Methodist, and then he back in the 1880s or so he started this offshoot religion, and it's called the True Lights. And the True Lights, they decided that it was 1870s actually, and they said 100 years from now the world will end. And so in the year, actually it was the year 1970, they thought was going to be the end of it. And everybody who was in this cult sold all their earthly belongings prior to that. And they all went up on some hill and waited for the fucking world to end. And then when it didn't, they were just like, well, I'll be damned. And so I think a great many of them, though, actually doubled down, how people tend to do when your boots are shook.
Right. They meant 1975.
Yeah. So whatever. So I think definitely all the elder members, all the parents rather stayed in the cult. I think most of the children then were like, fuck this nonsense. Like, that was crazy. Y'all are nuts. So all my second cousins got the fuck out of it. Right. But their mother stayed in, she was down for the whole thing. There's not a whole lot about it online. I looked up a little bit, and I was able to find 2 big articles about it, and they were old fucking articles, basically from 1970, about how this cult was gonna, and it was some of it was the fallout after it happened, because I think it was January 2nd or something, or January 1st of 1970 that it was supposed to happen. And
right.
Then, it was talking about how these people had sold their businesses and basically divested themselves of every fucking thing, and what were they going to do now?
Exactly.
So that was kind of what all the articles were about, was what are these fuckers going to do now? But that's a weird thing. So anyway, moving on. Laura's got a mild connection to a cult.
So this one, and I won't name names because it's not really my story to tell, but It did end up in in a national publication about a situation. But there's a cult. I don't even know if there's still a cult called Diamond Mountain, and it was founded by a man who was a blood diamond sales guy. So he could sell some shit, and like he worked for De Beers, whatever the diamond company was. Yeah. And he started these yoga, not really studios, but like yoga events all over the country where you would yoga. And then he would just go yoga, right? But then you would slowly become indoctrinated. He called himself Geshe Michael, so Geshe means like teacher or something. And it was like a pseudo-Buddhist, but somehow also yoga cult, because those two things shouldn't be related. But so anyway, he created a community in Arizona called Diamond Mountain, as you can imagine. Why? Because his entire fortune was paid for by diamonds, because that's what he did. And then, so a bunch of people that were recruited from all these yoga places all around the country moved to Arizona to join Diamond Mountain. But then there were some situations. Apparently, one of the things you do, like after a certain period of time, you do like I don't know, 30 days in the desert or something. Like you go up into the mountains in the desert and you are completely silent and you learn stuff. Yeah, exactly. You learn shit about yourself, apparently, but you have to be really silent. You have to be committed.
I learned that I'm pale and I burn easily.
Exactly. So this story actually, you can Google, I'll probably put the link in comments later, but it was a journalist. This is the one time I've read Playboy for the articles. A journalist actually did an expose on this because a group of people went out to the desert to do their shit, and there was some infighting among the desert people who were supposed to not be talking to each other, but apparently you do. And then two of them, a married couple, decided to go off on their own, which, newsflash, not a good idea in the desert. So they went off on their own, and then they were higher up and they didn't have access to water, and one of them was dying, and so finally she called the emergency number or whatever because her partner was dying, and then by the time anybody got to them, they were both dead. So some people died, and the people that we know that joined this cult and moved out to Arizona are no longer in the cult. So it's good to know.
Yeah, they were like, hey, never mind.
Yeah, maybe death, but in this case it was like self-imposed death. It was like Chris McCandless, like Into the Wild. Like they're like, we're going to just go be dumber up higher in the mountains where we don't have water.
Hey, it happens. I mean, we haven't even spoken about this one cult that's going around right now called MAGA.
Yeah.
Which is sort of a death cult where people deny that there's a thing going on, and they just like, hey, don't vax me, bro. And then they're like, next thing you know, you read their obituary and,
Right. And we could have talked, because a companion with that is QAnon,
sure,
which we could have talked about in the misinformation episode with conspiracy theories. So
right. Yeah,
those are a whole other things.
There's a whole, but it's a whole mess of stuff. People will believe all kinds of crazy shit, I suppose.
They will. So yeah, I guess as humans, all we're looking for is some charismatic leader to tell us what to do. I think that's what I get out of that.
Yep. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who it is.
I don't give a shit. Just give me some fucking easy answers.
Exactly. So we are out of time. Technically, we're over time. So let's wrap the show up. I think we have things that are extra this week.
Oh my God. So briefly earlier, I mentioned I was drinking this New Belgium Citrus Rescue was the name of the beer. And I mentioned to Laura before the show, like, what the fuck is New Belgium doing with their branding? Like, that's some crazy shit.
Right.
They got like back in the day, New Belgium had Fat Tire, and that was their big deal. And then they had this other one. I don't remember. It's, what is it? 16 something?
1554.
1554 was their dark beer. Okay, so they had like 2 or 3 beers, really.
And Fat Tire was like their amber, and yeah, they were specific.
Sure, yeah. And then they kind of rolled out this new thing where they started having this like the Voodoo Ranger, which was their we believed at the beginning of it that this was their line of IPAs, right?
But originally it was just one IPA, and then they were rolling out other Voodoo Rangers.
Yeah, they had like
we thought they were
IPA Rangers, and we thought, okay, well, this is what they're calling their IPAs. And then they started Citradelic, which I thought, okay, well, this is what they're calling their citrus IPAs or what, you know. But then, like, time goes on, and like I don't know, it was like last year, I think somebody handed me a Voodoo Ranger lager, and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? This is crazy.
Yeah, that's not a lager.
What? And then just now I had this thing, and it was called Citrus Rescue, which was a citrus IPA. And I'm like, well, why isn't this called Citradelic? Because like I thought that was what you called your citrus IPAs. What the fuck is going on over at New Belgium? These guys don't understand branding worth of shit.
Yeah, no kidding. And they're like, if the Voodoo Ranger wasn't bad enough, like the lager was one thing, and then they also released over the Halloween or October, they had their pumpkin beer, which was a Voodoo Ranger Atomic Pumpkin, and I'm like, okay, it's a pumpkin IPA. It's not a pumpkin IPA. It's an abomination with like habaneros and shit.
Yeah, it was a spicy pumpkin. I don't even know what kind of beer it was.
It was terrible, is what it was.
Yeah, there's still a can of it in my refrigerator because I won't finish it.
There were 2 cans in mine, and I just dumped them out yesterday because I was never going to drink them.
I actually have a couple of their, and I have some Domingos. Domingo, which was their what was it? A mimosa sour.
Yeah.
I got some of them still left because I really liked them at first, and then I bought them because actually Heather said she wanted to try some, and then I bought a bunch, and I brought them to Dragon Con, and I don't think she ever got one. I don't know what happened with that, but anyway, they're still in the fridge, and waiting for Heather to drink them. Heather's not on
we'll have to make that. We'll have to get her down to Asheville and make that happen.
Yeah,
but
this one,
right. So yeah, and like their Fat Tire was originally just their amber, but then all of a sudden there was like Fat Tire White and make up your fucking minds.
I don't know what they're doing over there, but they need to work on marketing. Like it doesn't sort it out.
I know some marketing managers that would be really good at it. So if you need to make a hiring decision, we've got you. All right. That is it for this show. We are off next week. Okay. And then actually, were we supposed to be off on the 21st too, or are we back on?
Yeah, I'm going to be out of town.
All right, so we're off for 2 weeks.
Yeah, let's say we're off then too, because I'm not going to dial back in just to be on the show when I'm out vacationing.
That is completely fair.
All right.
So why don't you take us away?
Sure thing. Bill Has Opinions is engineered and produced by Laura Lavoie. The opinions of Bill are his and his alone, unless they both agreed on them, in which case they both agree on them. And I don't know. I guess they're both their opinions, or vice versa. I don't agree with everything she says, although we mostly simpatico. I don't know. Anyway, they're definitely not the opinions of the people who pretend to advertise on here, which is to say that we advertise for them and they don't really have any say in it. Let's see. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and hashtag Opinion Gang if you say anything about us. You can leave us some feedback. We'll get back to you in the mailbag, whatever. If you have a question or concern, or you want us to do a show about anything, just be sure to mention it. We'll try to get to it, or unless we just don't give a shit. And that's about that. I guess we'll see you in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks, tune back in, and we'll have another exciting show, which I don't know what it'll be about, but it'll be something exciting. I can promise you that.
It always is, right?
Yeah.
All right, folks. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Have fun, everybody.
All right.